Namaste and good morning, everyone. Let's do some prayers before we start our Tuesday's class. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha, Om Bhur Bhavaswaha, Tatsavitra Varenyam, Bhargo Devasya Dhimahim, Diyo Yo Nah Prachodayat, Astoma Sadgamya, Tamso Ma Jyotirgamya, Mrityorma Amritam Gamya. Om Sehna Vavtu Sehna Bhunaktu Saviryam Karvavai Tejasvi Navadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let's open our books. Uddhava Gita. We are on chapter 9 and verse number 32. And Lord Krishna is talking about the siddhis which we gain when we do the sadhana. So verse number 32. Jitendrasya dantasya jitishwas atmano mune mad dharnam dharyataha kasa siddhi sudurlabha. For one who has learned to control his senses, breathing and mind, by being constantly engaged in meditation on me, what mystic power would be very difficult for him to obtain? Okay. So if we learn to control our body, our prana, our mind, that is the biggest mastery. The Lord herein says that anyone who can control his breathing and fix his mind on him can achieve any mystic perfection he desires. Verse number 33. Antrayan vadante etaha yunjato yogam uttamam maya sampadya manasya kal kshapnah hetvaha. It has been stated by learned experts in devotional service that for he who desires to achieve the wealth of my association by means of his execution of pure devotional service, the mystic perfections that I have described are actually impediments and a waste of time. Okay? Exactly what Rishi Patanjali says, that we don't do sadhana for these powers. The goal of the sadhana is to become one with God, not to attain these siddhis. So over here he says actually they are impediments and waste of time. These mystic perfections can attract and excite only small boys and not mature men. These siddhis are actually impediments on the path of attaining shelter at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who has the association of Lord Krishna dwells within an unlimited ocean of mystic opulence. And so he should not waste his precious time pursuing mystic perfections independently of the Lord's service. So now the next part in the purport, I personally don't like what this author is saying, because in the verses, there's no way it is mentioned there. He says inferior yoga like Hatha Yoga, Raj Yoga certainly wastes the practitioner's valuable time. So if somebody just reads this and says, I'm not going to do the Hatha Yoga, and Raj Yoga is what? Raj Yoga is meditation, knowing your mind. So this line is out of place. So sometimes some authors, with their devotional mind, they just write something like this. And if the student is not mature enough, they'll stop doing it. Hatha Yoga. Hatha Yoga is for the body, and we need the body to do the sadhana. Okay? So the devotees of the Lord consider such yoga practices to be a hindrance on the path of devotional service. They're not hindrance. Sure, we got to know the goal of yoga also, but at the same time, it's almost like a saying that learning ABC or learning 1, 2, 3 or the simple mathematics or learning how to structure the sentences is useless. It's not. It has its place. Taking care of the body is very important. Without the body, we cannot do the sadhana. So that's why I was saying that I disagree what this author is, the way he is writing. In this regard, one should study the verse of the Shrimad Bhagavatam that begins with the Yama Dhirbhir Yoga Patha. Let's look at verse number 34. Janam Aushadhi Tapo Mantar Yavatir Ihi Siddhya Yogain Apnoti Tasarvaha Na Anyer Yog Gatim Vrajet. Whatever mystic perfections can be achieved as a result of good birth, herbs, austerities, and mantras can be achieved by engagement in my devotional service. In fact, one cannot attain the actual perfection of yoga by any other means. Some siddhis are naturally acquired from the time of one's birth. By taking birth as a demigod, one is automatically endowed with many mystic perfections. Simply by being born on Siddh Loka, one automatically acquires all of the 8 principal perfections of yoga. Similarly, by being born as a fish, one becomes invulnerable to water. By being born as a bird, one gets the mystic perfection of flying. And by becoming a ghost, one gets the mystic perfection of disappearing and entering the bodies of others. It is stated in the Patanjali Shastra that mystic perfections can be achieved by good birth, medicinal herbs, austerities, mantras, and yoga. And that is true. It's mentioned in the 4th chapter, 4th path of Yoga Darshan. But why we are born in a certain body or a certain place, that is the result of our karmas. Everything depends on the karma. Those who reject the devotional service of the Lord and endeavor for perfection by some other means cannot be considered very intelligent. The devotees reject all other processes to engage in the unalloyed devotional service of the Lord. So-called yogis who are interested in their personal sense enjoyment cannot understand the importance of pleasing the senses of Lord Krishna. Any process other than the service of the Supreme Lord, which is the ultimate goal of yoga, will certainly award one only prostration. A couple of more verses of this chapter. Sarvasam api siddhanam hetu patir aham prabhu aham yogasya sankhasya dharmasya brahma vadinam. O Uddhava, I alone am the cause, maintainer, and the Lord of all mystic perfection, all yoga processes, Sankhya philosophy, devotional service, and Brahma Vadis. So all mystic perfections are accomplished simply by meditating on the Supreme Lord. Therefore, he is the cause of all kinds of mystic perfections. He is also the maintainer of the mystic perfections and the Lord of those perfections as well. He is the object of the yogi's meditation by which they achieve mystic perfections. The Lord is also the objective of the cultivation of spiritual knowledge and the performance of the pious activities. So since the goal is God, and this Maya, because these mystic perfections really means learning how to control the Maya. Maya is God's Maya. So once you are one with it, sure, of course, you can control all this. The Supreme Lord alone is the object of the various adhideyas or path of perfection, which are followed by all classes of human beings. The so-called perfection attained by those who have become bewildered by self-centered, egoistic conceptions of life and have thus given up the service of the Supreme Lord is temporary and most insignificant. So that means if you just make the goal that these are siddhis, that is not right. Goal should be clear in our mind. The Supreme Lord is present everywhere, and he is the ultimate goal of all processes for attaining perfection in life. The last verse. Aham atma antroho bahyo navritaha sarvdehi nam yatha bhutani bhuteshu bahiranta swam tatha. Just as the material elements are situated within and outside all material bodies, in the same way, I am also present within everything as the super soul and outside of everything in my all-pervading nature. God is not just inside, outside also, everywhere. There's no place where God is not. It is said that the Lord is situated within the hearts of all living beings. While considering this, one might imagine that the Lord has separated himself into innumerable different identities. In this verse, however, the Lord explains that his existence cannot be infringed upon by some mere material conditions. He remains unchanging in spite of displaying so many manifestations. Just as the material elements are situated both within and without all material bodies, so the Lord is all-pervading. So this is the end of this 9th chapter. And let's look at chapter number 10, the Lord's opulence. The summary says, in this chapter, the Supreme Lord describes his opulence in terms of his specific potencies of knowledge, prowess, influence, and so on. Shri Uddhava glorified Lord Krishna by saying, the Supreme Lord has no beginning nor end. And he is the cause of all living entities, creation, maintenance, and destruction. He is the super soul of all living entities, and thus he witnesses all the activities of those in material existence by remaining within their hearts. Still being bewildered by the Lord's external energy, the conditioned souls cannot see him. Okay, so he's everywhere, but we don't see him. After offering these prayers at the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, Shri Uddhava expressed his desire to know about the Lord's various opulences as exhibited in heaven, on earth, in hell, and in all directions. Lord Shri Krishna then described all these opulences in detail and concluded by saying that all prowess, beauty, fame, opulence, modesty, charity, wonder, good fortune, heroism, forgiveness, and wisdom that are manifest in the material world are simply portions of his splendor. It therefore cannot be truthfully said that material objects possess these opulences. Such conceptions arise from mentally combining two ideas to produce an object that exists only in the imagination. Like a flower in the sky, material objects are not essentially real, and so one should not concentrate on its mind on them. By regulating their speech, mind, and vital life here, with the help of intelligence, devotees of the Lord perfect their existence in the Krishna consciousness. So the first few verses, they are spoken by Uddhava. He says, Tvam Brahm Paramam Sakshat Anadi Antam Apavritam Sarvesham Api Bhavna Nam Tran Sthitye Api Uddhava. Uddhava said, my dear Lord, you are beginningless and without end, the absolute truth himself, uncovered by anything else. You are the protector and life giver, as well as the destruction and creation of all things that exist. This chapter describes the Lord's principal opulences, as well as the extent of his influence and knowledge. The previous chapter concluded with the statement at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord of the original cause of all mystic perfections. After hearing this, Uddhava expressed his desire to know more about Krishna's material and spiritual opulence. Shri Uddhava glorified Lord Krishna as the supreme shelter of all. He said, O Lord, you are the supreme personality of Godhead. Your form is eternal. You are without beginning, and your existence is not covered by anyone or anything. Although you appear to be limited when you descend in your human-like form, you are all-pervading. The original creator of the cosmic manifestation, Lord Vishnu, is your plenary portion. You are the protector of everyone. You sustain everyone, and you maintain all living entities. The Supreme Brahma, who is the ultimate cause of the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of the visible material universes himself, free of all kinds of material designations. He is not under the control of material time, because time is one of his countless manifestations. Okay. Number 2. Uchavecheshu bhuteshu durgayam akritatmapi upaste tvam bhagwan yatha tathena brahmana. My dear Lord, although it is difficult for those who are impious to understand you, how you are situated in all superior and inferior creations, the Brahmins who actually know the Vedic conclusion worship you in all sincerity. Uddhava said, although you are the origin of the Vishnu Tattva, and you are situated within all higher and lower species of life, ignorant and impious people cannot appreciate your glories. On the other hand, Brahmins who know the Vedas as your sound representation faithfully engage in your worship. The word Uddhava in this verse means superior and inferior, higher and lower, or great and insignificant. When one possesses material objects, they gradually transform before one's very eyes because they are under the control of the mind. Therefore, to meditate on the objects of the senses will not yield a permanent result. Those who know the Vedas search for the origin of material time, place, and the candidate, and thus come to the conclusion that the devotional service of the Supreme Lord is life's actual goal. Okay. Verse number 3. Yeshu cha bhuteshu bhaktya tvam paramrishyah upasina prapadyante samsiddhim tad vadasune. Please describe to me the perfections attained by the devotees who worship you with great and transcendental faith. And please describe the transcendental forms of your Lordship that they worship. By worshipping various forms of the Lord, one can achieve particular mystic perfections. To hear about this is the request of Shri Uddhava. So we wonder also, what is the best form of worship? Because God is everywhere, but for a human mind, this material mind, we need a form. Okay, for people like us, to worship the formless is very difficult. Even Lord Krishna, he said that in Bhagavad Gita. Verse number 4. Gudashcharsi bhutatma bhutanam bhutbhavane na tvam pashyanti bhutani pashyanta mohitani te. Oh my Lord, maintainer of the living entities, you remain hidden within the hearts of all living entities as the super soul. Being bewildered by your energy, they cannot see you, although you can see everyone. Uddhava is still talking. For those who are conditioned by the 3 modes of material nature, the opulence of the Lord is incomprehensible. Uddhava said, despite your presence as the super soul in all living entities, the conditioned souls cannot see you. Although you are the benefactor of everyone, you remain hidden within their hearts so that they cannot see you. So it's not only in others' hearts, in our own heart we cannot see him. If one reads the word Bhut Bhavna without the Visarga, Uddhava addresses the Lord as O benefactor of all living entities. Okay, so it's like a Bhut Bhavan. The Supreme Lord is transcendently situated and thus beyond the reach of the material senses. The foolish conditioned souls consider God to be their order supplier. Materialistic men may sometimes appear to be very religious, but because they consider themselves to be proprietors of God's creation, their prayers are simply that their material desires may be fulfilled. Everything within the creation is owned and controlled by the Supreme Lord. When the Lord sometimes appears as an incarnation, such bewildered materialists generally take him to be just another product of the modes of material nature, being unable to appreciate his transcendental position. Okay, so we saw that how many people really recognized Lord Krishna when he was in the human form? Handful people. Okay, Lord Ram also, any avatar, how many people recognize? But as the time passes, people recognize more and more. But when they are in the human form, very few people can recognize. Number 5. Ya kascha bhumau divi virasayam vibhutyoho dikshu mahavibhute tamayam akyaya anubhavitasthi namami te tirat pandangiri paddam. O Supreme Personality of Godhead, please describe to me your inconceivable potencies, which you manifest on this earth, as well as on all other planets throughout the universe. Okay, so God did not create only this earth. God is the God of the multi-universes and even beyond. I offer my obeisance at your lotus feet, which are the shelter of all the holy places of pilgrimage. Uddhava said, because the understanding of your opulence is most confidential, you yourself must reveal this knowledge. We can know about your opulences only by your grace. For the understanding of the conditioned souls, Uddhava requests the Lord to explain how he expands his potencies by means of his various expansions. The word vibhuti in this regard refers to the Lord's material and spiritual potencies as manifested within our universe. To remove the ignorance of the foolish conditioned souls, the Supreme Lord accepts a mood of magnanimity and acts as an instructor. The conditioned souls, driven by the desire to cultivate knowledge of the external world, are unable to understand the existence of the absolute truth. So now from next verse, Lord Krishna is talking, he's answering, trying to make Uddhava understand and make us understand. Let's see what he says. Verse number 6. Evam etad aham prishtaha prashnam vidamuvat yutsunaha vinashnay saptaner arjunenuva. The Supreme Lord said, who best among those who inquire about the truth? At the Kurukshetra, as he prepared to confront his enemies, Arjun asked me this very question that you have raised. Okay. I'm sure you can all recall that from your Bhagavad Gita studies. On the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Arjun inquired in a similar manner. Verse number 7. Gyatva gyatihi vadham griham adharmam rajye hetukam tato nivritoho hantaham hatoyam iti lokika. While seated on his chariot in the midst of the battlefield, Arjun thought that killing his relatives would be the sinful result of aspiring to fight for a kingdom to rule. He wanted to leave the battlefield thinking, I do not want to be the slayer of my relatives. Remember in the very first chapter, all the arguments Arjun made, and this was one of them, that I don't want to slay my relatives. Arjun inquired about the Lord's opulence at a time when he had refused to fight, considering that to kill his relatives for the sake of enjoying a kingdom would be highly irreligious. Arjun thought of himself as the killer and his relatives as those who would be killed. These were his mundane conceptions. Sa tada purushaha vyagruho yuktya me pratibodhita abhyabhashyate mamevam yatha tvam ran murdhani. I enlightened the despondent Arjuna, Lord is saying, a tiger among men, by means of reason and argument. And you saw that in Bhagavad Gita, there were a lot of question asked by Arjuna and answer given by Lord Krishna. So that's what he's saying. I enlightened the despondent Arjuna. You remember the very first chapter in Bhagavad Gita, Vishadyo, despondent Arjuna. But still a tiger among men, because he was the greatest of the warriors, by means of reason and argument. In the midst of the battlefield, Arjuna questioned me, just as you are now inquiring. Verse number 9. Aham atmodvamisham bhutanam suhrid ishvara aham sarvani bhutani tesham sthiti udvapya. My dear Uddhava, I am the super soul of all living entities. And so I am naturally their benefactor. I am the supreme controller and sustainer of all living entities, and the cause of creation, maintenance, and destruction. Lord Shri Krishna herein describes his opulence in general. Aham gati matam kala kalyatam aham gunanam chapyaham samyam gunanye atpatikoho guna. This is verse number 10. I am the supreme destination for those who are trying to make progress. Clearly, he says, I am the goal. And I am time for those who attempt to exert control over others. God. I am the equilibrium of the three modes of material nature. And I am the natural ability of those who possess talent. The essential nature of all material and spiritual objects is that they are manifestations of the Lord's opulence. The Supreme Lord is the actual objective for fruitive workers and mental speculators. He is understood as time by those who delight in controlling others, and among the qualities, he is the special quality that is exhibited by those who possess some particular talent. The Lord is the ultimate goal for all those who search after some kind of perfection, because everything is simply manifestation of his unlimited potencies. The results obtained by fruitive workers are avoided by the Supreme Lord through the agency of the demigods, the Devatas. Remember in Bhagavad Gita also Lord Krishna said that the devotees, they worship the Devatas, they forget that I am the giver. I am the ultimate giver, even though it seems like you are getting it from the Devatas. Okay. So the Lord is the ultimate goal for all those who search after some kind of perfection, because everything is simply a manifestation of these unlimited potencies. The results obtained by fruitive workers are avoided by the Supreme Lord through the agency of the demigods. Mental speculators may abandon the fruits of their labor, but their quest is to realize the all-pervading aspect of the Lord known as Brahma. Materialists run after the temporary objects displayed by the Lord's illusory energy and thus miss the chance for self-realization. Those who reject material variegatedness and consider the absolute truth to be devoid of qualities cannot understand how the Supreme Lord possesses transcendental qualities. In this way, it is seen that the Supreme Lord is the ultimate goal of all kinds of people. Those who desire to enjoy the fruits of their labor and those who desire to become one with the Supreme are covered by the external energy of the Lord. The actual goal of life is to engage in the Lord's loving devotional service on the transcendental platform. So this author is putting the service to Lord even above the moksha. Okay? See, when he says those who desire to become one with the Supreme. Okay? So in bhakti, when you're so immersed, you just want to be as a servant. Because unless there are two, how can you serve? So just like a Hanumanji, he said, I want to be a sevak. So this is what he's talking about over here. So in order to do the seva, you got to be little separate. Verse number 11. Guninam api aham sutram mahatam cha mahanaham sukshmanam api aham jivo durjyanam aham manah. Among the things that possess qualities, I am the primary manifestation of nature. And among great things, I am the Mahatattva, the total material manifestation. That is Mahatattva. It's called Mahan also. Okay, so aggregate of everything. Among subtle things, I am the spirit soul. And among things that are difficult to conquer, I am the mind. Sounds very much like Bhagavad Gita over here. The word sutra indicates the primary manifestation of nature. Here the Lord says, among things that are difficult to control, I am the mind. And among subtle things, I am the spirit soul. This is also described in the Vedas. The soul is atomic in size and can be perceived by perfect intelligence. The atomic soul is floating in the 5 kinds of air. Pran, Apan, Vyan, Saman, and Udan. Is situated within the heart and spreads its influence all over the body of the embodied living entities. And we are all familiar with this terminology. When the soul is purified from the contamination of the 5 kinds of material air, its spiritual influence is exhibited. So this is from Mundak Upanishad. And elsewhere it's stated, when the upper point of a hair is divided into 100 parts, and again each of such parts is further divided into 100 parts, each such part is the measurement of the dimension of the spirit soul. So it's so subtle, and we studied in Shvetashvara Upanishad. Because sometimes we want to know how big the soul is. It's so subtle, it doesn't have any form. But still it's all pervasive. That is the beauty of it. But with this analysis, these rishis, they try to take our mind towards the description of it. The dimension of the spirit soul is smaller than the tip of an arrow. Although the spirit soul is minute in size, like an atom, it is spread all over the body and its energy works throughout the body. See, just like a sun is up there in the sky, but energy of the sun is everywhere. The same way the soul, the energy of the soul is in every cell, everywhere in the body. As a precious jewel or powerful medicine, although covered by lac, manifests its effect when touched to the head. the minute size of the spirit soul does not hamper his display of progress. Let's look at one more verse and we'll stop it here today, because there are a lot of other examples he's giving, just like in Bhagavad Gita, and we'll go through it next time. Hiranya Garbho Veda Nam Mantra Nam Pranvas Trivrit Akshara Nam Akarosmi Padani Chandu Sam Aham. I am the original teacher of the Vedas. Hiranya Garbha. And among mantras, I am the three-lettered Omkar, Pranav. See, Pranav is another name for Om. So among mantras, I am the three-lettered Omkar. Among the letters, I am the first letter, Akara. And among sacred hymns, I am the Gayatri mantra. Okay, Chandru Sam Aham. The Lord says that among the teachers of the Vedas, he is Hiranyakara Brahma. See, another name for Brahma is Hiranyakara. And among the sacred hymns of the Vedas, he is the Gayatri mantra. So let's stop it here. Next week, we'll start with the verse number 13. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Visheshyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you very much.